Is an All Black always an All Black past when they play?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you're sort of part of that, I suppose, special club, special group, you've got a special place within that. I mean, we always say that, as All Blacks, when we put on that jersey, we always mindful of the heritage and the legacy, and it goes back over 100 years. And then when you get it, you've probably heard the seller, kaitiaki it and steward it and add value, add mana, lift the value of and the meaning of that jersey while you've got it on your sort of watch. And then when you pass it on with, it's a better place than when you received it. So that's sort of the mindset, and that's the attitude that all the boys have, and even this group, they'll be, acutely aware of that.
How's the heart rate when you're watching big games? Are you still, is it like you're right there, or do you sort of get to somehow distance yourself from it with the years gone by and being out of the game? Or
I mean, there's a high degree of familiarity, of course. You've been there. You sort of know what's happening, and you have a real sense of not just the pressure, but the excitement and just all the array of emotion. You've lived it, you've been there, and so you can really relate to where the boys are at. So in that sense, yes, but I'm sitting there thinking, I'm so glad I'm not. I'm just loving being in my armchair. It looks too hard. It looks too tough, and the game has advanced a long way.
Are you sitting for the whole game? Because I watched it with Salah on the weekend. I don't think he sat for 1 minute. He just paced.
Okay.
He paced around the back of the room, back and forth.
Yeah, he's a bit like that in our St. Peter's under 15s team too. He's hard to control. He's all over the show. We've got to drag him in, and I'm just worried he's going to run on the field and tackle someone.
You talk about the familiarity. There's a sense of familiarity. This is an imposing, it's a historic rivalry, the All Blacks v South Africa. You were a part of a historic test win over there. Can you just take us into the changing rooms in terms of what that holds? Because, outside looking in, we can feel how intense it is. I just don't know how intense it is in those changing rooms.
Yeah, it is the greatest rivalry, Stella. I mean, we don't say that lightly as New Zealanders, as Kiwis. I mean, I grew up in the 70s. You two were still not born, of course, but... I watched Sir Brian Williams, Sir BG, and that grainy black and white footage sidestepping the All Blacks, and, it inspired me and inspired a generation. And, of course, it was the South Africans. And then, we were always mindful that the Springboks in South African rugby was probably the strongest sort of most competitive rugby team in the world. But through apartheid, we didn't have that contact in my era until 1992. And I was so privileged to be part of that team that got selected for the first All Black tour in '92, and Mandela had just been, come into as president, and there was a big shift in, as you know, and the South African society, and we were there, and I still remember we got off the plane. A lot of us just, literally kissed the ground, because we were like, wow. For Kiwis and for young rugby players and for All Blacks, it's the ultimate to play the South Africans, and particularly in South Africa. So, when you talk about 90, so I'll never forget 92, because, I'm all of a sudden we're playing at Ellis Park, there's 80,000, and that's a legendary, iconic stadium. And we'd only ever seen it on TV, right? If you think for a generation. And here we are playing, and Nas Border's still playing, Danny Gerber's still playing, all these greats that we'd only dreamed that would ever even meet. So we're playing against them, and thankfully we won, but I remember they came back really strong in the second half, and I think if we'd gone on another 5-10 minutes, they probably could have beaten us. And remember, they'd been isolated for so long, so that spoke volumes of the passion and of the level of rugby they were cultivating even then in isolation. Yeah. And so 96, as you refer to, Salah, that was, I think, the ultimate, one of the greatest experiences in All Black, because we went back and were the first All Black team to win a test series in South Africa, and that alone was hugely significant and special to be part of that. And obviously it was a special team, Fitzy and Zinni and Robin Brooke and Jonah was still there, and just Andrew Blowers, some great mates and great All Black
Icons, really.
Icons, yeah. So, we're all there. And to win that Test series, I think maybe we were called the Incomparables, which was pretty special.
Yeah.
But I think that spoke to the significance for New Zealand and All Black rugby of what we achieved. And it was so special. I was very humbled and grateful to be part of it.
How much are you aware of the moment? Maybe it's different for individual players, but when you're in there and you know everything that's on the line, it's been a long time since you played over there, or it's the first win you're going to get against a certain team, or say last week where you got the record of Eden Park on the line. How much are you aware of the moment in the game, or does that, because obviously the build-up, it's all there, but do you kind of have to let that go and just focus on doing what you know you're supposed to do in the moment, or are you sort of feeling the weight of all of that as you play?
No, you live in the moment. You've got to just operate in that, in the here and now, and in that very second and that very minute. You can't even go thinking a minute ahead. And so I think obviously, and talking about Eden Park and what took place last week, I suppose the understanding and being cognizant of the fortress and what that meant for us as an example, it adds to the occasion, but nothing else really changes because it's you're still going in to win a test match. And yes, there might be these additional pressures or components of that make a game special. And that obviously is Eden Park too, and it is this very special place to play. But to be fair, you sort of just got to live in that moment.
Yeah.
And you just got to absorb. Especially if there's a lot of love and affection, and particularly 60,000 All Black supporters. Mind you, there was probably 30,000 South African supporters.
It was a few. I know you're invited in to speak to the team leading up to the test against South Africa at Eden Park last week. In my head, I can only reference movies where somebody comes into the locker room before the big game. And, it's Al Pacino or someone, and they give a rousing speech that just keeps building and building, and everyone's... Is that at all what it's like? Or when you share with the team and you're invited to come and speak to them, what does that look like? What do you say to them?
No, not really, Vaughan. Sorry to disappoint you. No, because, one of the things they do, and it's a fantastic sort of concept, they do a Tuesday night before a test, they do a club night.
Yeah.
And so everyone wears their club jerseys, and...
Oh, neat.
It's cool because it reminds them of where they came from and where it started, and the connection back to the grassroots and their own communities, and it's a nice frame. And with that, they invite someone in, and normally an ex-All Black. I had to squeeze into my 1999 Waitemata jersey, which was not nice, but I said I'll do this for the love of the group, and I think there were a few smiles, and but yeah, in saying that they invite you to talk to some themes, and the cool thing about the All Blacks this year, and I'm sure they've done in the past, but they've got standards and values that they want to reaffirm, or us to talk to as ex-All Blacks. And I had the privilege of, talking to, what it means to be a warrior and a champion, and, things like humility and inspiration. And, there's a whole lot of other really important values that they have. And so I can speak to that, and I love speaking to that. And also what it means to be an All Black. And, of course, the importance of Eden Park because of that game. So I was able to speak to that and hopefully encourage the boys. I'm speaking to the converted. Of course, these boys have the best coaches, and a lot of these guys have been there a lot longer than I have. Right? You think of the Bowden Barretts, and some of them have played so many tests, right? And of course, Cody had just played at 100. Ardie had coming up to his 100. So I'm just coming and bringing a fresh perspective, I suppose, and hopefully just speaking to what they already know. But if I can add something new or bring something fresh or just a different dimension or take or perspective, I think that's enriching, and hopefully that's uplifting.
You just have to have ice in the room and people take notice. Why wouldn't you have one of the GOATs in the room to give you a lift before a
I feel
massive
pumped.
test.
I feel pumped up right now.
You know what I mean? You know,
That's Rich coming from Sella. He laughs when I speak to my boys at the under 15. He's giggling.
I'm going to come back to that in just a second.
Teasing.
But
Thank you, bro. You're too kind.
please correct me if I'm wrong, but you were quoted in an interview saying Ardie Savea is the closest to a perfect rugby player that you've seen.
Yeah, I think the more that you see Ardie and as he continues to evolve, I mean, playing 100 games in itself, and that's why I've always admired the Richie McCaws and the Kevin Mealamus and all those guys that have, played over 100 games as All Blacks, because I know how hard it is. I mean, I had a lot of injuries. I missed some Sunday games, but to get to 100 tests, it's phenomenal. It really is, and it speaks to longevity. It speaks to resilience. It speaks to your ability to play without really getting injured, and maybe it's a blessing. But for Ardie to have achieved that last weekend, but then be playing at the level he's playing, and the fact he can play any loose forward position, I still think he's, he when he plays, whether it's 6, 7, or 8, he's probably still the best in the world at all of them. So what does that speaks volumes about a loose forward? And so. Yeah, I think he's the best player in the world at the moment, personally. And long may that continue, because he is an inspiration.
What about the spiritual leader title that is, the captain? With Scott Barrett saying he's our spiritual leader, and Ardie's the one. When he's interviewed, or he doesn't hold back about his faith, which we really admire.
Yeah, and. Yeah, I've witnessed that, and I've been so proud of him and so inspired by him too. And I think Moana Pacifica gave him a space and I suppose an authority to just be himself. And be genuine and authentic, and I think he just carried on from that, and you saw that as the captain of Moana, he was very comfortable in his faith, because that's who we are as Pacific. But I think it's his own Christian journey, and he's sort of at that point where he's like, I can say whatever I want, and so it should be like that anyway. I can testify of the goodness of Christ in my life and everything that means. And so the referral to being a spiritual leader is, it's not surprising, and it's to be expected, because that's how he operates, how you see him and how you hear. That's how he walks. He walks the talk.
Yep.
And I think that's what really wins the hearts and minds of those men. And, leadership is influence, and he influences so powerfully in that space that I've seen it in the Moana Pacifica, closer. But I can see it in the All Blacks, and it just permeates, and it just flows through, and it lifts the team. And so we can't underestimate the power of that influence. And it's a God-inspired influence, right? So good things are happening in his life, and we believe it's blessing the All Blacks. I believe that.
Me too.
There's favour.
You're well known for being open with your faith, and famously choosing not to play on Sundays and things like that. When you were in the ABs, was there a sense of a spiritual leader in the team in your time, or is that would you say that's changed over time, or was there someone at that point too when you were playing that was that same kind of role?
I mean, we've come a long way. I mean, the culture of the All Blacks was a lot different, to be honest, and it was a lot more closed, but there was still a lot of respect. And I mean, I just had to be true to who I was. I think, again, like the All Blacks, as individuals, they'll respect you as long as you don't compromise. And if you walk the talk, they'll stand by you 110%. So as long as you're doing that, I suppose I was, stepped out in a limb a bit, and I had a lot of respect for that from my mates and from my coaches, and I appreciate that. And, I thank God for that, because, I suppose that it's true that if you honour God, he'll honour you, and I believe that, and God honoured me through that decision, and it was my own personal testimony, and I've always seen that as what's defined me more than anything else as an All Black. So, I that's my testimony, right? We hit the God Squad. That was when Inga and Ronnie and a few of the other boys came in. Would be referred to as the God Squad. So, but I don't know if we ever, and if they did in that generation, it wasn't talked about as more because it was just a different culture, different individuals.
Different time, yeah.
The guys these days is, you're dealing with a totally new generation of young men.
I want to ask you who you think's going to win and how we're going to win on Saturday, tomorrow. But this isn't really a question, more of a statement. I mean, about Sir Michael's character. People are aware of his humility and they're aware of his leadership through service. People are aware of that and they read the stories and have seen the headlines and whatever. But I've been privileged enough, blessed enough to be up close with Sir Michael on a lot of Saturdays during winter. He made reference to an under-15Bs team that he coaches. I just pick up the cones.
Sal's the intern, but he's doing all right.
I am.
He's the taskmaster.
But this is just speaking to his character. 9 times out of 10, after a game, after we play a team, Sir Michael, without just of his own doing, will go towards the other team and sit and talk to them about, I don't know, because we're removed. We're on the other side. We're dealing with what we're dealing with even after a win. We win, and we're here celebrating with the boys, talking to them. Meanwhile, Sir Michael's walking off to have a chat to those other boys, the young men of the future. And when I look at that, I think he's still working and having an influence on these young men and women who are playing the game. And he's imparting his knowledge and maybe his influence. And from outside looking in, I feel like this future of the sport that we're playing in, the rugby that we're playing in, is in good hands with people and mentors like Sir Michael, who takes time out of his own day to be able to do that. And no one sees that. I can vouch for that because I've seen it up close.
Thank you, Sal. Wow. I don't know what to say.
Well, I say that because we're waiting for you to do prize giving. But
I mean,
too friendly. Well, I've never heard a bad word spoken about you. So
I mean, Sal is the same, and we're all the same. I think you're the same, Bjorn. We're grateful for where God's positioned us in places. I mean, look at what you guys are doing here on radio airwaves. It's so I've just always been mindful that how do I steward that influence, and it's a platform we've been blessed with, and you guys have a platform. It's simply about being blessed to be a blessing, and how can we encourage, how can we challenge. A lot of the time when we're talking to those kids, we're like challenging them because whether it's behaviors but we're also trying to impart something about inspiring them to just be the best they can be, be prepared to do the hard yards. There's no shortcuts. It's all those same messages, but hopefully, what we always bring in, it's the same with any boys we're working with or young men, it's the power of love, unconditional love. And I still believe that wherever we can outwork that in whatever way, and coaching is a great way to do it, bro? It's called tough love sometimes, especially when Sal is making them do 100-meter sprints and down and ups, and I'm saying, pull back, bro, pull back. And he's like, no, you're too soft, ice cream. He calls me ice cream. He goes from ice into ice cream. Yeah, so
too good.
No, but it's a privilege. Honestly, it really is.
Well, it's been a privilege for us having you in, Sir Michael Jones. If you've just tuned in, we're chatting to him. We're talking about the All Blacks, the upcoming test. So this weekend, it's the second test against South Africa for the men, and then on Sunday morning, the Black Ferns are playing South Africa in the quarterfinals too.
Wow!
And over in England for the Rugby World Cup. So, what's your prediction for both of the games? Are you going 2 from 2?
Yeah, I've got to. I know that the Cape Town test, the Wellington test, is going to be harder. If you look at their team, they've brought in some young, talented backs in particular, and Fussy and I'm trying to remember some of the guys' names, but they're really exciting, young, talented. A lot of the coloured and black players have been brought into the back line, and so that's going to bring an interesting dimension. And then they've still got the bomb squad to come on. So, and then they'll be hurting, a wounded lion, which is South African rugby.
Are you saying we're going to win or lose?
I'm saying we're going to win. But we might not win by 7. It might be. I'll be happy if we win by 1. There you go. And I think with our Black Ferns, they're going to win. The Springboks. I mean the South African women's team are sort of up and comers, but I think we'll
we'll do
take
the
care
job
of them.
there.
Yeah, we've got a really amazing team, and I'm picking they'll go all the way.
Nice. A repeat, holding the trophy again. Hey, we were so thankful to have you in, Sir Michael Jones. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes this morning.
My pleasure.
God
Thanks,
bless
gents.
us.